This is In Between Them, a podcast where we uncover what it really felt like to be a child of divorce. I am Shannon Darrow, and each episode brings honest stories from brave adults who lived through this as children. This is In Between Them. Let's get going. Hi, Rashelle. Thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
I am so good. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I would love for you to start this. I think you have just an interesting story, and I also think that you have an interesting podcast. If you'd like to give it a plug, that would be
Sure.
fantastic. But give us just a brief snapshot of kind of who you are, what you do, how you got here, and then we'll kind of dive into the details.
Yeah. So my name is Rashelle Newmeyer. I am in the Willamette Valley area in Oregon. If you don't know where that is, it's between Portland and Salem, which is two of our largest metros. I'm a real estate agent, so that's why location is important to me. So if you're ever looking to relocate, or if you're here, I'm your girl. But I do, as Shannon mentioned, I have a podcast called The Realtor Who Whines, which is a business mindset podcast of different people in business, entrepreneurs, business owners. And we talk about business growth, challenges that you have developing business or growing your business over a glass of wine normally. So I would love it if you check that out. I am heavily involved in our real estate industry. I do sit on the board for Oregon Realtors, the Portland Realtor Association, and the Women's Council of Realtors. I am really involved in our community and advocacy for home ownership within our state and also nationally. And then, of course, I am a mom, which is like my favorite title that I have. My daughter is 10, and I'm just a girl that likes to travel. I'm a Disney adult. I don't know, all the things. I don't know what else you want to know, but that's a little snapshot of me.
That's fantastic. We were in November, we went to Disneyland. So I'm originally from Southern California. So I grew up going to Disneyland. It was not that big of a deal. You know, we'd kind of go whenever, which now I realize how fortunate that was. But we took my son in late October, early November. Hopefully no one's taking notes on this because then it will blow this up. But we got there and nobody was there.
That's a really good time.
I mean, it was like the best time I ever had when I was young, when we would go in like the rain on a Wednesday and nobody was there.
Because the locals don't really come out in the rain either. And if you're a Pacific Northwest kid in California and it rains, you don't care.
I know. This had never happened to me before. We actually came in on a ride, like we'd gone on the ride. We were still belted in. We came out and my son said, I want to go again. And the lady was like, sure, go ahead. So we just rolled through. I mean, it was just, for him, it was the best experience because kids, when they can have that kind of freedom there instead of the chaos and the lines and everything.
Yeah.
You know?
Before my daughter, I have a nephew that's older than my daughter, and we took him to Disney as a family. There were 6 adults and Wyatt, who was 3, and he loved the Winnie the Pooh ride, and no one was in line for it. And they're like, do you want to go again? And we went like 5 times in a row. And he's like, again. And they were like, do you want to go again? And all 6 of us at once were like, no. Because we had just gone like 6 times in a circle. We're like,
things you will do for children, right? 5 times on the Winnie the Pooh ride.
Yeah. I love Winnie the Pooh too, but I need a break. Let's go.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Maybe like we'll come back later and we could do a few more. That's so
totally
funny. Oh my gosh. Yes. Well, it's definitely a special place. Well, thank you for all of that. I find it all to be fascinating. I frequent the Willamette Valley often. I have many favorite places out there. It's actually amazing how you just drive a little bit and you're out there and you're like, how is this beautiful? Just half hour, 45 minutes from Portland. I mean, it's really a special, very unique place that I had actually no idea when I moved here, how just amazing and big and filled with so many wineries and so many places, you know?
Well, it is. And you can see Mount Hood from most of this area, which is always beautiful. And then like a vineyard with the mountain behind it is always so relaxing and serene, especially when you're enjoying a glass of wine. But this area is also known for hops, for like beer, all the different berries, strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, boysenberries, marionberries, all the things. So there's a lot of different crops. So as you are driving out this way, it's funny because we have these cute little cities and towns, and we're not that far from Portland or Salem. Just like 20 minutes to the west, you're like out in the country enjoying a glass of wine. It's really cool.
Pretty special. Well, I want to dive into why we're here today. And the best way to start is really for you to kind of tell me how old you were when your parents got divorced, and provided you have memories from that time, what is it that you remember about how you recognized or were told what was happening, and what did that transition look like for you at that time?
Well, just a little bit of backstory is my biological father passed away when I was 5 in the military. And then my mom remarried my dad that raised me when I was like 6.5. And that's the divorce I'm going to reference a little bit. So they got together when I was about 6.5, and then they separated when I was 15. So I do have tons of memories for
Yeah.
sure,
Okay.
because I was very well aware of what was going on at that time. And I'm the oldest of 3. So I was 15, my brother was 13. And then my mom and that dad that I'm referring to had my sister. So we have a 10-year difference. So she was 5. So full dynamic. And one thing that was like really crucial to me at that time was when my dad passed away. I really struggled with that, and I had a huge like void. And then so when Jim came into our lives, I just grabbed onto him like, I need you. I needed to fill that void. So then when they went through the divorce, it was like losing my first dad all over again while losing Jim, kind of. So that was hard, but they fought like crazy. So my brother and I weren't like shocked when they decided to divorce. We were almost a little bit relieved, but we thought the fighting would stop. As teenagers, we thought, okay, if they separate, then they won't fight anymore. And it was almost like the fighting got worse, because then it was like more attacking each other, or, like verbally and stuff like that. And then also trying to help my sister, being a 15-year-old with a 5-year-old sister, just being really mindful of her and her feelings and trying to shield her from some of the stuff that was going on. When I talk about my parents' divorce casually with my friends over a glass of wine and stuff, I always refer to it as a Jerry Springer show. Like, that just aged me a little bit, because that show hasn't been on in quite a while. But for those of you that don't know, it was a talk show that was like really crazy, where people are
Yes.
screaming, chairs are
Yes.
being broken, and they would just both get into this like sphere of fighting that was just like outrageous.
Wow.
And then even once they separated, they couldn't be in the same room, which when you're a teenager or a kid at all was so hard. I remember my senior night for volleyball. So they would have been separated at 3 years at this point. I wanted them both to come down with me. Like when the parents come down to the gym floor to acknowledge the seniors, they could not stand by me. And so I have this picture where I'm standing by myself, and they're both like so far away. Like you can't even see it on the screen right now while I'm talking, because they're both so far away because they couldn't be near each other. And you're just like, can you just stand with me for my picture, please? And then it looks weird, right? It's like
Yeah.
so embarrassing.
Well, I actually spoke to someone else who had a similar epiphany when I can't remember at the moment why his mother was not there, but his dad could have come and didn't to his senior night for I think it was basketball. And he was the only one on his entire team that walked out by himself.
Mm-hmm.
And he had this epiphany of how dysfunctional his family was in that moment, that actually up until that point he knew, but he didn't realize so acutely until that
Right.
moment. And you think of those times when you're younger and you do like this public something with your parents.
Mm-hmm.
I had something similar happen with my son's school, where there was this challenge thing that I was putting on for the school, and the kids had to take something home. And I had a parent say to me, can my daughter get 2? Because she has 2 homes, and it would be easier than expecting like a 4th grader to remember to take the paper back and forth.
Right.
And it's like these moments in school that illuminate these differences and these
Totally.
things that I feel like it's not that hard. Like there's so many divorced kids that it should be something that is on people's radar, you
Mm-hmm.
know? But it just tends not to be. And it's a total another topic, but I just
Mm-hmm.
find that people are having these hard moments that are
Yeah.
very public, you know? I can only imagine how that made you feel. Like you said, can't you guys just do this for me?
Right.
You
Well,
know?
and you don't have to smile at each other, talk to each other. You don't even have to stand by each other. I'm still in the middle.
Yeah.
But it was like at that time too, my teammates knew what was going on, because you talk a lot with your teammates on the buses and things like that. But other kids that were at the senior night watching this happen, because they were there to support the volleyball team, they didn't know what was going on. So I did have to like field questions come
Yeah.
that Monday, like,
Yeah.
why were your parents standing so far away from you? Or were
Yeah.
you, they thought it was me. Like, are
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
grounded? Are you in trouble? Did you do something wrong? And I
Yeah.
was like, nope.
And that time of
What
life is
you're
hard
saying.
enough. And to my point of this whole thing is parents can get divorced. That's whatever,
Yeah.
their prerogative.
Yeah.
But there are choices along the way in the aftermath where they can choose to do better or choose to do worse. And this is an example of, hey, you guys chose to do this, but this is your daughter. Can you just stand next to her?
Right.
How hard is that,
Well, and I acknowledge even at that age and now too, like obviously I care about both of them and I don't fault them for this in hindsight, but they were going through a hard time themselves. They couldn't see outside themselves. They were dealing with the grief and the hurt that each other had put on each other. But when you're 15, 16, 17, or younger, you're not
Yeah.
going to have that kind of insight,
Yeah.
right? You're just going
Oh,
to be
no.
like, oh my gosh, can you just like be with me? And then I'm the oldest child, the oldest grandchild. I'm an elder millennial, so people pleasing's like in my soul. And even then, my graduation that year, because I was born Rashelle Newmeyer, and then when my mom got with Jim, I changed to Rashelle Hecker. And when they separated, my mom made me change back to Rashelle Newmeyer. But I knew that hurt his feelings, and I didn't want to hurt his feelings. So with my own money, and I didn't tell my mom. And so if you're watching, Mom, don't come for me in the comments. It's been 20 years. But I ordered my own invitations to send to his family that said Rashelle Hecker and to him because I didn't want his feelings to be hurt. I didn't want him not to want to come. I didn't want that side of the family to think I no longer thought of them as family. And I did that with wedding invitations later in life, baby invitations. I always order a whole stack of separate cards for them until like my 30s. Finally, in my 30s, I was like, this is getting silly. Plus, I'd been married and things at that time. So I didn't have to worry about being a Newmeyer or Hecker at that time. I was a Windholtz. So I just put Windholtz on everything. But yeah, it's interesting that even then I was just like, keep the waters not as shaky, just send out 2 sets of invites. But I wouldn't tell my mom I did that, and I wouldn't tell him I did that. So they both just saw like everybody got the same invites, but they didn't.
My God, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of extra
Totally.
work. And
Yeah.
the emotion behind doing it, I mean, those are, it seems like a little thing, but I think, if you're anyone who's done wedding invites or any of
Yeah.
it, but
Yeah.
also you having that feeling and carrying that feeling of, I have to do this. Like you said, when you were 18, you bought them yourself, did them yourself, and kept the secret from your mom.
Yeah. Well,
You
because
know?
I didn't want her feelings to be hurt either,
Yeah.
that I was still wanting to recognize him. And then I wasn't going to ask her to pay for it. I wasn't going to ask him to pay for it. And so I was just like, what they don't know will hurt them. And it's one less thing for them to fight about. Because if invites went out that said one or the other, that would have been one more thing for everybody to be pissed about.
Yeah. So that is like a lot of management of
Mm-hmm.
people's emotions that you're doing. Did you do that a lot prior to their divorce? With a lot of that fighting, were you, I don't want to say involved, but did you ever try to like make it better? Or did you, like, what were you doing when the fighting was going on to either not make it worse, not get involved? You said you would shield your sister, but
Yeah.
what was your kind of reaction when that was all going on?
Yeah, part of it was the oldest sibling kicking in. So I would just be like, I'm going to take Wesley and Chelsea to the park now. And we would just like leave while they were fighting. Like I would just take them to the park to get them out of the house. Or if dinner hadn't been started yet, I would just start cooking dinner or something just to take one more thing off so that they weren't fighting about that. It wasn't like they fought every night, but it was when they fought, it was like all out and could take forever. It felt like, at least at that age. Maybe now looking back, maybe it was only 20 minutes, but it felt like
Like,
so long. And then I do really recall having memories sometimes of, and I think a lot of kids probably go through this in any of these situations. Like I knew they both loved me and my brother and my sister. And I just recall one time they were fighting pretty hardcore out in the living room. I had Wesley and Chelsea in my bedroom and I was trying to like distract them. And I thought, I wonder if I got hurt, if they would stop fighting because they would be focused on me being hurt. And I thought about like, how could I get my leg to break? And then I thought, oh, I don't want to do that. But those went through my like young adolescent head of like, if I broke my arm right now, would
mm-mm.
they stop fighting or would that make it worse? Would they be like, oh, great, now Rashelle broke her arm. Look at what you did. Or would they stop long enough to be like, oh no, Rachelle's hurt. Let's like deal with it. So, of course, I never hurt myself, but it did cross my mind like, how can I get them to stop? And I recognized that they loved me, but I was just like, what could I do that would be drastic enough to just get the yelling to stop? because like sometimes you couldn't like walk to the park or whatever. Sometimes it was 8 o'clock at night or it was pouring or whatever. So you could only do so much with your siblings at that age, you know?
Yeah. That's actually incredibly profound and significant. And I think that you're right. I think that there's a lot of kids that try to take matters into their own hands.
Hmm.
How do I fix this?
Yeah.
And like you said, you're either adulting as a child where you're cooking dinner or you're taking the kids to the park. Like you've completely transitioned into a managing sibling, an adult.
Yeah.
You've lost a part of that childhood because you are very hyper aware of what's going on and you're trying to save them from that. But then on the other side, going so far as to say, like, okay, what drastic thing could I do to get this to stop?
Yeah.
You
Or
know,
will it even work? Because I
yes.
was like, cautious of what if I break my arm and it just makes it worse? And now I got a broken arm. And sports was everything to me. Like I mentioned, I played volleyball. I also played basketball. So it was like, if I break something,
Yeah.
I'm also out. And that's
Yeah.
like my escapism is like
Right.
go to practice.
Yeah.
So I talked myself out of it rather quickly, but I do think about that even now in my 40s. That still pops into my head. Like, I can't believe I thought, oh, I wonder if I hurt myself if my parents will stop fighting. Like, what a shitty situation.
When you think about that, and so like take an example of you being
Mm-hmm.
older when this is going on. There's tons of people who are like, I was 15, my parents got divorced. I was shocked. I had no idea why.
Mm-hmm.
They never fought, blah, 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 whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole nother bucket
Yeah.
of different issues. But in your case, it's similar to people whose parents stay together until they're 18 and they fight the whole time. And they've
Mm-hmm.
convinced themselves that this is better because we're together and kids don't have to go through what they go through when parents are divorced. And so we'll stay together till they're 18 and then we'll get divorced.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, this is an example of what anyone who's outwardly fighting is
Yeah.
running the risk of their child having these kinds of feelings.
Yeah.
And it would be interesting to know, and I'll ask you this in conjunction. Did you then ever try to talk to your parents about the fighting? Have you since ever talked to them about the fighting? But to your greatest point in what you said is, even if I had done that drastic thing, I don't even know if it would have got them to stop.
Right.
Like,
It would have just maybe fueled the fire because they would have blamed each other for me
yeah,
thinking I needed to
yeah,
do that.
yeah.
I did try talking to them about it a little bit back then. I've definitely at length now been like, they still to this day cannot talk about each other, refer to each other without calling them a name. They're both happily remarried. They're both like so happy until you mention the other person or like, oh, I can't, I'm doing XYZ with mom, you know. And like I said, it happened when I was 15. They separated when I was 15. I'm in my 40s. You're happily married for years. Like, for your own personal peace, let it go.
It's,
Let
yeah,
it go. So, I mean, now as an adult, I'm just like, what are you doing? And I will challenge and set boundaries that way. Back then, I was just like, do you guys need to yell like that? Is there a reason you guys are screaming? There had been times I like out in a fight and just kicked one out where I was like, enough, stop. You leave. One of you leave. And I would force a parent. Like, I actually physically put my hands on one of my parents and was like, you have to go. One of you has to leave. You're closest to the door. And like, I'm 5'2" and tiny now. I was an athlete back then. I'm like 100 pounds soaking wet back then and maybe 5 foot. My stepdad was 6'3". Like, and I was just like, you have to go. One of you has to go. We can't listen to you fight anymore. And I think sometimes that shook them out of it because at their core, they weren't trying to be bad parents. It wasn't about us at all. It was about their own stuff that they could not work out between themselves. And I think sometimes doing that did shake the room up a little bit. There's sometimes I got the you can't tell us what to do. You're a kid, go to your room kind of a thing. And I was like, well, if you guys don't leave, I'm calling grandma and grandpa. Like, we're out of here. And this is pre cell phone. So it wasn't like I could be like texting a family member to come get us. Like, I'd actually have to use the landline to call for help, you know? But sometimes I had called a grandparent once or twice to be like, I don't know what to do here. Can you come get Chelsea? Because I was always just so worried about my little
yeah,
sister.
yeah.
I figured Wesley and I would be fine on our own, but I would worry about her. And then they would get mad that I called a parent because then they had to behave in front of their parents. So, yeah.
Did you ever get any clarity on what their issues were or
Oh,
why they got divorced?
I think as we've seen, and as you grow up, right, you see this with like your friends, with other adults. Sometimes people don't even think that they remember why they're mad. I think they're just so rooted in, I hate this person. I hate my time with them. I have nothing but bad memories with them. That, like, even in the moment, some of the stuff they could have worked through didn't get worked through. And then miscommunications. There was at one point infidelity did happen. According to one party, according to the other party, it didn't, but that's always been a fight. They still, one swears up and down today that it happened, the other one swears up and down it didn't. It doesn't matter at this point, but it's just like you get so rooted into these like few things that you can't see through the water. You know what I mean? They're just like stuck in the mud of the water and not the actual like clear part of it. And I think some people, it's more about being self aware and just thinking, like, is this serving me? Is like being mad about this anymore serving me? Should I let this go? And the answer is yes. Like, I'm not a therapist, but like, that's just from one human to another. Let it go. You're going to be way more happy if
Yeah.
you do.
Well, and to your point, like you said, that was 15 and you're 40 and they're
Mm,
still mad. I mean, that's there's so much of hanging on to it.
right.
Whether it's the children that are still hanging on to the things that happened and have or haven't dealt with all of it or just still feel the impacts,
Yeah.
or the parents that are still angry, and
Hmm.
you're like, we are like decades
Right.
past, you know.
Right.
And to your point, they're both married to other people and happily, it sounds like. So, and that's just where you get it's just confusing, you know.
Hmm. Well, and enough is enough. Like, even for my siblings and I, with it still being an issue on Chris, like, don't even get me started on the holidays and special occasions and all of that stuff. And it's just like, can you guys just chill? Like, let it go at this point. Like, I get it when feelings are really hot, like really hurt and everything was hot, like back then. But like, yeah, it's been 25 years. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Let this go.
What was your individual relationship like with both of your parents from, 6, I think you said, when they got married?
Mm,
You said in the beginning, really great with your stepdad. Despite the yelling and all of that, did that
mm.
impact your relationship with them, or was that kind of separate?
It did. As a teenager and not knowing all the ins and outs, obviously, of my parents' relationships, I ultimately picked a side for a little bit and I picked my stepdad's side. And I agreed with him and like thought my mom was in the wrong. And I already had all these angsty teenage feelings towards my mom that you would have without all this extra layers of stuff going on. Um, and so my mom's and my relationship was really rough for most, like, 15 to 20 and then probably most of my 20s, to the point where when I got pregnant with Rylan, I wanted a boy so bad because I thought for sure if I had a girl, we were just going to fight tooth and nail. And I was really nervous about that. And that's not the current, well, she's only 10. So we haven't hit that stage yet. But so far, that's not been our relationship at all. But then also, my mom and I have had a lot of healing and mending. And now I actually have a really great relationship with my mom. And I no longer have a relationship with Jim. So, like, things have kind of changed for multiple reasons and different family dynamics. But I look a lot like my mom. I have a lot of her mannerisms, and sometimes he cannot see through that. Like, he sometimes thinks, like, I think subconsciously that he's talking to my mom, and it just pisses him off, and he can't get over it. So, yeah, it's been a weird dynamic, but I did choose my dad at the time. I even moved out right when I turned 18. Like, the week I turned 18, I moved out of my mom's house and moved into his house because she couldn't tell me I couldn't. Um, so yeah, it was hard. But I also felt like I had to choose too. Like, it was at that point where it's just like, well, you guys can't get along, so I'm just gonna have to choose a side. And I chose his side. And that really did damage my relationship with my mom for a long time.
Yeah. Well, it's nice that you've mended that, you
But
know.
yeah, if you follow me on social media, you'll be like, what? Because my mom's like all over my social media and she's my Disney Plus one. So, like, we're together all the time. And my daughter looks a lot like me and my mom. So when the three of us are together, it's a lot of blonde and curls happening. And yeah, it's interesting.
Well, and that's, I mean, again, to your point of you had so many other things going on as a high school girl.
Mhm.
And then all of this, I mean, really 15 to have all this happen.
Mhm.
Not that, like, my consensus, in my opinion, is that there isn't a good age.
Yeah.
However, there is less going on externally when you're younger. You know, when you're
Yeah.
older, you have all these other dynamics, all these other pressures. And I'm not quite sure parents are always, yes, I think everyone's kind of aware of what teenage years are, but everybody gets impacted by them differently. And then you
Totally.
layer on this type of stuff. And so I think that's something for parents to think about. What is the current dynamic of my child? And
Mhm.
now I'm getting divorced, or you're at a different phase of your kind
Mhm.
of co parenting journey. How is this impacting my child differently? And like your senior night is a great example of what is going on in their life that could potentially expose them
Mhm.
to questions, ridicule, shame, embarrassment, things that kids do not want to feel when they're in high school,
Yeah.
you know, because they feel it anyways. Like your hair's not perfect and now you feel like crap. And
Totally.
then your
Well,
parents don't stand by you at
yeah.
volleyball. And now, you know, so many different things. And
Yeah.
I just, I feel like that has come through really loud and clear on the many guests that I've talked to is what they're going through in their life and then how it just compounds everything.
Mhm.
Then to your point of internally to your home, how can I get this yelling to stop? Maybe if I hurt myself, you kind of take a step back and look at that like big picture and what are kids doing in kind of big picture ways to get attention, to draw out some type of either attention or stopping something or changing the narrative, you know, just changing the story in some way. And I think there's a lot of that going on as well.
Yeah, well, and something I think people don't think about, and now reflecting on my own journey, is your kids, even when they don't mean to, they subconsciously repeat your own situation, right? And so, how I chose relationships was impacted by their relationship. I knew I was like, well, I don't want that. So then I chose a different relationship that necessarily maybe wasn't like the right relationship for me, but it was just opposite. I knew we weren't going to fight like that. Like my ex husband and I never ever really fought like that. We never were yellers or anything. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about that journey too, but I on purpose chose other things to avoid what I witnessed. But sometimes kids choose what they know. Like to them, that's normal. Like I've had conversations with friends that grew up in a very toxic environment and they think their relationship's healthy because they're not yelling at each other. And I'm like, but there's still this and this and this going on, you know? So it's just interesting. Like your kids are gonna mimic or they'll do one or the other. They're either gonna do exactly what you're doing or they're gonna go far opposite.
Yeah.
And we see that all the time, even not in divorce, but like kids that come from homes with drugs. They either lean into drugs hardcore or they're anti everything and super sober because they don't ever want to go down that path. But there's not a lot of like in the middle, you know?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, the one thing that I keep in my own parenting journey with my son who's now 13, what I realize and what I wish I had realized like day one is that kids are watching every single thing you do.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. Like literally how you unload the dishwasher, when you change the sheets on the beds, to
Mm-hmm.
how you fight and how much you drink and everything in between. If you
Yeah.
say thank you to people at the store and how you drive your car, like they and we think we're so conditioned to think that like there's certain things that they really pay attention to and like make sure you're really good at these things, but the rest of your life for some reason they're not observing it. And it's like they're observing everything. And to your
Yeah.
point of they're going to repeat for good or for bad what you're doing. And so I'm very interested to get how this transitioned into your marriage and with and
Mm-hmm.
your parenting, but I do think that's something that just like the fighting and what you were trying to manage, like that's happening. You're processing that yourself and how you're going to take that forward into your own life. But at the same time, you're now parenting these two younger siblings that you have in a way that you're trying to save them from this impact.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, there's just so much going on there.
Yeah.
And let's give your parents the benefit of the doubt that they were aware of some of it, but they just couldn't help it. They had to fight. Most parents in that kind of circumstance, they're oblivious to the impact on the children.
Right. Right.
And so then They don't understand when you're saying or doing things that are a result of that. What's your problem? What I've been listening to and watching for however long. But so before I get to kind of you 18 and then go on into dating and get married, I just want to ask you, prior to 18, that you think was pivotal to the circumstances, that you think impacted you in a way that is worth sharing? Or what did you notice about your 10-year younger sister and how she kind of fared? Because you're 15, so you had just a couple more years and then you were done, but she clearly
Yeah.
like had the brunt. And I don't want to get it into her story in depth, but just, did you notice anything? Did the separation help things? Did she have a better situation? Like, what was that like?
No, because like I feel terrible because I feel like I'm talking bad about my parents, but I just don't think they knew to do anything different, and they were like so in the moment, and at their core they are both very good people and good parents. So I do want to put that out there. But my sister, because she was so young and around, because my brother and I could drive, like I could drive me and Wesley basically to my dad's after sporting events and things like that on the weekends. But my mom and dad still had to do like pickup and child drop off exchange more with Chelsea. Because sometimes he would get Chelsea right after school and Wesley and I would come after practice. Chelsea definitely became a pawn in the situation where we were raised so differently because of the divorce situation that like she got away with a lot of like lack of discipline because everyone was trying to win her favor except for me. So I was always a disciplinarian, and even to this day, like there was even times when I was like 18, 19 at work, and my mom would call me at work and be like, "Can you talk to your sister? I just can't even." And I would be like, "Chelsea, what did you do today?" And I was like disciplining her, like, "When I get home, we're going to talk about this."
Wow.
And which is funny because now everyone gives me a hard time for being bossy or a leader. And I was like, "You made me, you created this." But yeah, I do think it impacted her a lot. She definitely had more trauma, I feel like, through it too. She got exposed, or she didn't know enough, right? Because she's so little to know, like, even when my mom was saying something negative about Jim or vice versa, in my mind, it could be like, whatever, you guys, and walk off and let it not sit with me. But she was 5, 6, 7, 8. So it sat with her. She has not bad relationships with both of them, but I wouldn't say she has amazing relationships with both of them either. She's very, I'm an extrovert to the max. She's very introverted, more secluded. And I can't say again, because I'm not a therapist, if our childhood impacted that, but kind of
Yeah.
interesting that she's so different, but she was raised from me, not so different from the world, but like she was raised in kind of a different environment. Like those young years, the really impactful years, she was going through something. Like I went through my mom being a widow and mourning the loss of a parent, but Jim quickly like filled that void for me. And we had a very structured childhood from that. But Chelsea's childhood wasn't as structured because now my mom's working full time and she wasn't when she was with Jim. And then their dynamic of fighting. And so like parent drop off, school stuff, fighting over school clothes, dental bills, like all that stuff. I didn't have to experience that as a kid because they were like a unit when I
Yeah.
was a kid. So I do think Chelsea definitely was impacted completely different
Yeah.
than Wesley and I were.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that age gap makes a huge difference.
Totally.
You think of like the places that everyone's at from a developmental standpoint when all of that's happening, very, very different. That's funny. You said they're very good people. I feel like I'm bad
Yeah.
mouthing. And I feel like divorce is interesting in that I feel as though you can be a really good person and a really good parent and make really shitty decisions.
Right. Well, and that could be the case with anything. I do think something like divorce brings out the worst in us. As a
Yes.
real estate agent, I also see when a family member dies and things are in probate in estates, it brings the worst out of people. Like these like transitions of grief, whether you're grieving a relationship or grieving a loss of a loved one, like it's very surprising sometimes how people respond or react. But also I don't even think they know that they're doing it. Like I don't think they're intentionally like, oh, I don't care if this messes up my kids. He's a jerk or whatever. I don't think they're actually in that mindset. I just think they don't even realize they're in the mindset they're at. And but I just don't want anyone like, especially if my parents ever listen to this. I'm not trying to say like you were terrible parents and I'm screwed up because of you, but your divorce was horrendous and no one liked it. I
Yeah,
will say
I
that.
mean,
The
and
truth is the truth.
yes, and I think if you can separate it like you just did, it's like a moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's lots of emotion going on, and I think in a way it's like people have to accept that. Like, accept that this is a really crappy phase. It's like nobody's happy, everybody's angry, whatever
Yeah.
the case may be. But somewhere in here, there are these kids
Mm-hmm.
that don't deserve more. And it's just it's hard. I mean, if it was easy, then everyone would have
Right.
beautiful stories to tell about their
Right.
parents' divorce. So I think, like you said somewhere in here, it's about self-awareness. And that's ultimately what it comes down to is being self-aware of what yelling and screaming might actually be doing to this little child.
Well,
Period.
and even if you're not a yeller, but what are the words coming out of your mouth? Like, what are
Yes.
you saying? How are you saying it? How are you talking about others? And it's just, like you said, kids are paying attention even when you think they're not, even when you think they're on their tablet and they're not listening to you. Like, it's shocking to me sometimes when I think Ryland's got her nose in a book and she's like focused, and I'll get off a phone call and she'll be like, Mom, that was a tough negotiation. Did you win? Because she was like also listening to me negotiate over real estate stuff or whatever. And I'm like, they're going to get back to me. But I had no idea she was even paying attention.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I think accountability and self awareness are like huge in any of these situations. And just
Yes.
being honest, it's okay to be like, I did not handle that well, but like make a note of that and then like try to adjust on what you're doing instead of just being like, oh, well, I'm going to do that again, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Gosh, you said a lot right there. It is. It means self-awareness, accountability, and realizing it, like paying attention, realizing it and doing different, you know? So, what I want to ask you is, so you've mentioned that your daughter's 10 and that you were married and divorced. And I'd love to know a little bit of how you entered the relationship world in terms of what you took from your family and what you were looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously you got divorced. So, what
Yeah.
did that look like? But then, how did that shape how you got divorced? And
Mm-hmm.
how has that shaped your co parenting since then? That's a lot if you want
Yeah.
to break it down,
Yeah.
but
So I met my ex-husband when I was 21, and we just met early, and then we didn't get married until we were 25, but still young. Like right now in hindsight, it's young. And also there's a lot of variables in our relationship because when I met him, he had just joined the army because of 9/11, which is one thing I instantly fell in love with. I was just like, oh, what an American hero you are. So in our first 5 years of our relationship, he was deployed 3.5 of it. So, like, our relationship, and to this day, I know he would say the same. We do love and respect each other, and we are friends, which I know is not the case in a lot of other divorce. I mean, I just told you my own experience where my
right,
parents still today can't talk about each other. So, I do recognize that we're fortunate in that way. We stayed together long term, I think, out of loyalty. We're both very loyal people, and we also don't believe in divorce. And we're divorced. So there's that. But like at the time, we went into it thinking we'll never get divorced. We won't ever say the D word. But we were young. We were 25. And then life happens and certain things weren't addressed from military years. And then he is now a police officer. And so sometimes things play into that, just a lot of stuff going on. But with Ryland, besides like the very beginning of our separation, she has always been the main focal point of all of our decision making. And we have both, even though I know there's been times where he wanted to say something else or I wanted to say something else, we have both put her so much at the front of what we're doing that we will swallow our own pride, bite our own tongues. We never say anything negative about each other in general, normally, but for sure not in front of her. Even when like she brings up things now that are frustrating to her sometimes, that were things that frustrated me about him. And even now, sometimes I want to be like, yeah, I'm aware of that. Like I want to comment on it so bad, but I have to be like, let her self discover. Like someday when she's older, and if she wants to have a true conversation about my version of what happened with me and her dad, I'd be happy to share it with her. But now that she's younger, I don't want to impact that, or I don't want her looking for things that bothered me, you
mhm,
know? So I just say nothing. I'm like, well, I just acknowledge, like, oh, I'm sorry that's frustrating to you. Or, well, maybe ask daddy this question. One thing with her right now is communicating with him. She doesn't feel heard by him, which is a pretty normal
mhm.
adolescent thing, right? So I'm like, well, try talking to him this way. And then, or sometimes I'll just pull him aside and be like, apparently Rylan wants to talk to you about XYZ. She doesn't know how to talk to you about XYZ. Can you talk to her about XYZ? And sometimes he's open to it, and sometimes he's a dude and he's like, ooh, I want to talk about XYZ or whatever, you know? So we have those conversations, but we do really try to put her at the front. And it is hard. It's not like we're all sunshine and roses. There's reasons we got divorced, but there's still a lot of mutual respect there. So I think that does help our dynamic a lot. We do get a lot of feedback from people that are always pleasantly surprised or shocked at how well we get along publicly, just in front of everybody. I don't know. Even when we were going through a hard time in our marriage, we weren't like putting each other down with our colleagues or anything. Like, there's the old ball and chain. There was nothing like that kind of stuff. So I think that did like kind of leak into our separation. But I do have to be very self-aware sometimes. There are times I want to be like, what the hell? Just tell your dad. But then luckily it filters and I don't want to say, I'll be like, oh, okay, I'll talk to your dad about that. So I think that is one thing that I picked up was like from my parents' divorce, getting put in the middle a lot. Like, mom wants to know XYZ. Well, dad said this. Will you tell him that? I never wanted Rylan to have to be the middle person for
Yeah.
me and Philip. So,
Yeah. I mean, that's a huge thing because when parents can't talk, the natural inclination is to use the child.
mm-hmm.
But you're literally using the child, you
Yeah.
know? And I think that again, to your point, it's easier for them to do that because they don't want the conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And in reality, and I want to ask you if you can give a little bit more about how you accomplish this, because even though you and your ex, your relationship doesn't sound like it is high conflict or anything like that, but
Yeah.
still, even without that, like you said, there are times where you don't want to go along with it or you want to say something. Like, do you just feel like it's your childhood that quickly comes to mind where you just, it's almost like the greatest motivation to say nothing? Or do you have to actually work through it?
Yeah.
How quickly does that come to you to stop doing what you really want to do, you know,
Yeah.
because it's not good for your kid?
Well, ultimately, leading up to our divorce, the first decision I had to make was I was the one that kind of put divorce out there. I asked for some other things like, could we try counseling or this or that? And that didn't go anywhere. So then I was like, well, if we're not going to fix this, then I don't want to do this. But it took me a long time to get there because part of me was like, you mentioned this earlier where people stay together for 18 years or then like once their kid is off at college they separate or whatever. Part of my brain was, do I stay in this relationship for Rylan? And then part of me was like, or do I get out of this relationship for Rylan? Because I was scared of her thinking like, Philip and I did not fight, we weren't like toxic in that way, but we were like roommates. She didn't see a ton of random affection or like her dad buying me flowers or us going on a date night and her staying with like a babysitter and stuff. She didn't see a lot of that. And not that that's what all relationships are made of, but part of me was like, well, I don't want her just to pick a roommate someday when she gets married. And so I was just like really torn about it. Like, what kind of relationship do I want her to see? And that was kind of what helped lead me to even have the conversation with Philip on like, should we still be together or not? And then that's my main question I ask a lot now. And then part of it is to your point and your question is my childhood does pop up in my head. But then also like, what do I want her to see? What do I want her to feel? How do I want her experience to be? And I care more about that than getting my 2 cents in or dig in or holding my ground on certain things. And I think luckily for me, Philip is pretty much in the same boat. I'm sure there's times he wants to say something back to me. Even right now, we've had difference of opinion on the appropriate age to start shaving, the appropriate age to wear a bra, you know, things like that. But like, we don't have screaming fights about it. We just have conversations about it. And one thing I do appreciate with our dynamic is we still parent together. So if something's happening at school, I'm not the only one like talking to Rylan about it. We call him and I say, hey, so this is what's going on. And this is what Rylan has to say about it. And we talk to her about it together as if we were still in the same house. And I think that helps her a lot. It also helps eliminate any of the, well, I'll ask dad or I'll go ask mom, because she already knows, like, I will call him in 2 seconds or vice versa. So she's not trying to like good cop, bad cop us, you know? But we are a united front still on a lot of who we hope she becomes as a person. And ultimately, we just want her to be a good person. So, like, when something happens at school, like name calling or, you know, whatever, kid stuff, we talk about it as a family unit and like why it's not acceptable. And sometimes we include our other significant others. Like, sometimes it's he's remarried. I'm not remarried, but I've been in a long term relationship. But he's remarried, and sometimes it's all five of us are at dinner having a conversation as a group, and that also shocks a lot of people that like we sit together at sporting events. Rylan has a stepbrother now with her dad's relationship, and we cheer Cameron on. Like, we go to his stuff sometimes if it fits our schedules and needs, because Rylan wants to go cheer him on. And even my own family, including my mom, is like, I could never. You're a better person than I am. I could never. But it's for her. Like, I don't feel like I'm there for Philip or his wife. Like, I feel like I'm there for Rylan, and I'm there for her to support her sibling or whatever. And I don't have anything against his new wife or his new stepson. You know, like, I put them first. I don't go out of my way to do that kind of stuff. But like, if it pops up and Rylan asks, I'm not gonna be like, I'm not taking you to your dad's. There has been a couple times when we've been on vacation, especially early on in our separation. Like, we were at Disney, and Rylan really wanted to buy Philip this like $300 Star Wars jacket that he would have never worn ever. And I was like, we're not buying that. Even if we were still married, I've been like, we are not getting this for daddy. But I was like, if you want to get him something, we can get him a souvenir, but we're not buying this like sparkly jacket that your dad will never wear. But like, people, even on that vacation, comments were made like, you're going to buy Philip a souvenir. And I was like, Rylan's going to buy Philip a souvenir, and Rylan's 6, so she doesn't have any money.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I don't think of it as like I'm doing something for Philip. I'm letting Rylan do something. Or if she wants to go Christmas shopping for her family members at his side of the house, and it works out that I can take her, I'll take her. Like, does it suck? Sometimes I'm like, do I want to spend my single mom paychecks on this other family? Not necessarily, but I love that Rylan's a giver and she wants to buy something for her stepmom. I'm not going to be like, no, I'm not buying something for her. It's not about me, it's about her. And I recognize that's not easy for everybody, especially if there was like infidelity and all of that stuff. That was not my experience. But I just put her first in so much that it's easier to swallow the pride when I'm telling myself, this is for Rylan, this is for Rylan,
Yeah.
this is for Rylan. Yeah.
And I think maybe that should just be everyone's mantra, is that this is for my children. This is for my children. Because there are so many things you just said that might seem not that big a deal, but so many people pick a fight about, or multiple fights about every single one of those things.
Yeah.
And they make everything so personal,
Mm-hmm.
like you supporting her getting something for Christmas for her stepmom.
Mm-hmm.
That for you to be like, of course you don't want to spend the money. Of course, it
Right.
would be great if she had her
Right.
own wallet, or if like her dad would give you money to have her do it or something, whatever.
Right.
But the
Or I
point,
could be like, have your dad take you. He hates
right,
shopping. He's not going to
exactly,
take her
exactly,
shopping. Yeah.
right. But the fact that you're like, listen, this is just one more thing I can do with my daughter. What that is actually showing your daughter, like when she gets to be 25 and thinks back and says, my mom took me shopping for my stepmom,
Well, and
that's
it's
an
funny
incredible
because
lesson.
kids don't know how to articulate, right? And they don't know how to like build. Philip and Michaela first got together and they were serious and they were like engaged. Rylan was like, Mommy, I want to spend more time with Michaela. Can you plan a girl date for us? And I was like, I can. But of course, like everybody goes through. I mean, the biggest and the hardest thing about getting divorced is you're going to have to share your kid already with your significant other or your past significant other. But then having to share your kiddo with others, it's hard. And I won't deny that it's not hard. And I won't say that I didn't cry on my kitchen floor multiple times. Like the first few weekends, Rylan was at Phillips and not at my house because it's a transition. But I want Rylan to feel comfortable coming to me with that kind of stuff, like any kind of stuff. And I just didn't want to put in her brain, oh, you can't ask mommy for help with certain things. So I was like, sure. have you asked Michaela to spend time with her? And she's like, well, yeah, but like, again, she was like 6, 7 at the time. So it's like, what did she say? Did she ask Michaela to play a game and Michaela was busy making dinner and said, I can't? And Rylan took that as, I'm not going to spend girl time with you.
Yeah.
Or did she actually say, I want to do girl time with you? So I did. I just called Michaela and I said, hey, Rylan just asked me this question. I don't know. Could you? I was like, I'm happy to plan something, but I'm assuming you don't want me to plan a date for you with Rylan. So, like, will you plan something with her? And she was like, Shayla's a boy mom. She has a son. So she's like, well, what's something I could do with her? And I was like, you both like reading. Go to the library. Go to the bookstore. She likes to cook. You like to cook. Have her make dinner with you. Go to the grocery store, buy the groceries together. Have her make dinner with you or whatever. And then life happens and it didn't happen right away. So like a couple weeks goes by and Rylan's like, Mommy, did you plan the date? Like, I really want to do something with Michaela. And I was like, oh, I thought Michaela was planning something for you. When I talked to her, it sounded like you guys were going to have a date. So then I called her again and I was like, she really wants this date, lady. And she's just like, okay. And I go to the point where she wants me to come. And I'm assuming you don't want me to come. Not that like we hate each other, but it's also like, how can you build a relationship with Rylan if I'm sitting right there? So she's like, I'm sorry. It's just been busy at work. I'm not. And again, Rylan's only over there a small amount of time. So like Michaela's trying to figure this out in a small window too. So I tried to remind Rylan of that, like, give her a minute. Like, you guys have a busy schedule over there too. So then they started doing stuff together. But my mom was like, I would never. And I was just like, I know, but that's also why I did.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, I want Rylan to be happy when she's at her dad's. I don't want her to be sad. I don't want her to be lonely. I want her to have a good relationship with Michaela. And so I've just communicated that with her and Michaela. Like early on, Michaela's even reached out and been like, hey, I don't want to overstep, but I was thinking about doing this. It's like, you're not overstepping. Thanks for reaching out, but like, knock yourself out. To even like about posting Rylan on her social media pages. I'm like, she's part of your life. She's your family. Post away. Show her, because someday Rylan will see that and it'll look weird to her if she's missing from all the pictures, right? So is it hard to share my daughter with another woman? Yes. But would I rather another woman love my daughter and take care of her when I'm not around? Yep, that's more important to me. So that was a lot of pride swallowing, especially in the early days. But now it's nice because like Michaela's good at things I'm not good at. So I'm like, you should ask Michaela to show you how to do that because she's awesome. Like softball. She's great at softball. I never played softball. I'm terrible at it. Like, have Michaela throw the ball around with you. Have her show you how to do batting, stuff like that.
You have demonstrated such a beautiful way to like find the high points from each person and also the way you've communicated. So I think what happens a lot is one parent doesn't know the child in a certain way. Like in your case, it sounds like you have Rylan more than, her dad. And so there's just going to be things that you know about her that she likes to do and all of that. When another parent can ask, what should I do? Or what does she like? And not feel like I can't actually say I don't know what to do here because then that's going to reflect poorly on me. It's
Yeah.
like, just ask because you don't know everything. Nobody knows everything about everything. So just ask, and then the child actually benefits. I mean, your story, your first, we'll call it like chapter 1 of your story, fit my podcast and is such a great example of the unforeseen impacts the parents are not considering when they're going through their own stuff.
Right.
But what you've been able to demonstrate in your own co-parenting relationship with a child from a young age, because I think that is a big deal and matters dramatically.
Yeah.
And how you've been able to set yourself aside and saying, this isn't like I didn't cry on the floor. Like this is not easy for you,
Yeah.
but you do it. And I'm reflecting a lot because in my own situation, I had similar things that were difficult. Think had I had the wherewithal in some instances to do differently, I think I would wish I had. And I think that is another example in what you're giving as to people can do it well, and they may not do it as good as you've done.
Right.
But if they did half of what you've done, that's a million steps better for your child,
Yeah.
And everything that you can do better is one less impact that your child is feeling and one less way that they're losing some of their childhood and all the other things. Like you said, I just want her to come to me. I just want her to be able to ask me questions. I just want her to talk to me about this. Like you've preserved that in such a beautiful way. Now, she could be 15 and she could go sideways because 15-year-old
Sure.
girls do.
Yeah.
But what you have built for her so far is maybe she just does the normal sideways stuff, but she still comes to you, you know? And that's ultimately, I think, probably what your long-term goal is, right?
Yeah. Well, and just also with like Michaela, like if stuff is going on at her house, I want to know about it.
Hmm.
And I want to be a united front with her too when it comes to Rylan and Rylan's experience and what's going on. So, I mean, it didn't happen overnight, but it is nice that we are in a really solid place right now. And actually, even it hit me. Rylan just wrapped up basketball, and we were watching a game, and I was actually sitting next to Philip, and then my significant other Derek was on the other side of me. Michelle was on the other side of Philip. The four of us are sitting together watching, and I played sports, so like I have a lot of feelings about what's happening on the court, and Rylan was getting lazy and starting to foul instead of running faster. And I was like, pick up your feet, move faster. And she went, I am, like all sassy. And Philip instantly was like, hey, don't talk to your mom like that. And she's like, what? And then Michelle and Derek were like, hey. So it was like all four of us were like, check your attitude. And
Yeah.
then she was like, and then some of the other parents were like, holy crap, like she's got four parents that are instantly, we're all like, no, absolutely
Yeah.
not. You don't talk
Yeah.
back like in that
Yeah.
way. But then after the game, she also got all the accolades, like all four of us are proud of you. All four of us are here. We're sitting together. We cheer for you together. And her and I have talked about, because she's now getting old enough where she hears stuff at school about stuff going on with other kiddos and their family dynamics. And she said to me the other day, I'm so glad that you and daddy are friends. And I said, well, yeah. And I said, it's very important to daddy and I that we're a united front and you come first. And anything that we're doing or deciding as a family, you come first. And she goes, I am grateful because that is not the case with so and so. And like she starts talking about like stuff that's happening on the playground or conversations that are happening on the playground. So there are those moments and I'm like, okay, I think I'm doing okay. Because there are times as a mom, you know this, mom guilt kicks in every other second. And you're like, am I ruining her? Am I helping her? Is this going to impact her? Is this going to end up as a therapy session someday in 10 years? Like those things do pop in my head because I have had multiple therapy sessions. I have been talking about stuff that happened to me as a kiddo. And so I just want to help her grow more than like plant negativity type stuff. You know, if she has to go to therapy someday, I hope it's for other stuff, not because her dad and I were fighting in a gym or something.
I think I have two thoughts, and then I want to begin to close this for you. But you said, as you were saying that, referencing the United Front and all four of you, and just kind of said that this didn't happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that people expect it to happen faster. And then when it doesn't, they kind of give up on trying and just accept that we're just going to fight, that this is just the way it is. This is what happens when people get divorced
Yeah.
or whatever, instead of saying it might take 3 years to get to a better place,
Mm-hmm.
because we have to kind of let things lie from where they were and kind of find a new stability. And I think that if that was just more apparent, that it was for the long haul,
Yeah.
that by the time this kid's 18, they can say that my parents worked for the last 10 years to become friendly.
Mm-hmm.
That's worth it, however long and however hard that ten years took.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
Because I think that there's just something about not understanding that it takes time, and that's okay. If we're working to get there, and we might mess up, like we might say something or do something that completely sets us back on
Mm-hmm.
that path, but if we can ultimately get there,
Yeah.
and maybe saying to your child, like, I'm sorry, I just got really upset at your dad or whatever, and communicating, but this isn't the way I want to be, you
Yeah.
know, making it a little bit more of an intentional path.
Yeah.
I think
I
I
would
just
say, yeah, well, back to the like self awareness and accountability part of it is it's not going to happen, period, if you don't try to make it happen. Like, it's not going to organically, like, all of a sudden you and your ex are going to have a utopia type relationship. Like, it's the one thing that's kind of a bummer because like part of the reason you separated was because you couldn't get the relationship to work, but then you still have to figure out how to get the relationship to work. But it does take effort and time. And it does take, like, we've been separated like 8 months. Rylan had her fifth birthday, and I asked Rylan, "Do you want Michaela and Cameron to come?" And she was like, "Yeah." And so I asked Philip, "Do you want to invite Michaela and Cameron?" And it's at like my family's house with mostly like family, right? And he was like, "Isn't that weird?" I was like, "Is it weird if she doesn't come? Like, you guys are serious, right?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, we're getting serious." And I was like, "Well, Rylan loves Cameron. She talks about him all the time at my house. So, like, why wouldn't you guys come to a birthday party?" So, and then I pre warned my family, be nice. Like, I've never met her, like, beyond like kid drop off or whatever, but like, let's just pretend they're family friends and they're coming and we're going to be nice. It was, Rylan had the best birthday, and Cameron got to play with my nieces and nephews and other cousins and things like that. And everyone thought Michelle was delightful, and it was totally fine. And that was like the very first step of showing Rylan, like, you, both houses, it's not daddies and mommies, it's like your family. And we've tried really hard to like continue to do stuff like that. And then we have a text thread where it's like my grandma, my mom, my stepdad, my brother, my sister-in-law, my sister, my significant other, Philip, Michelle, and then it's labeled Rylan's activities. So anytime Rylan has a choir performance or sports and stuff, we're all in one thread together. We all share pictures in there together. So if somebody, because in real estate, sometimes I can't make every sports event because I'm doing open houses or showings. But then Michaela will pop pictures in that she took of Rylan at the game if she was there and I wasn't, or my mom or so and so. So like, it's united front
Mhm.
all the way around. And I did have to have some tough conversations with some of my family because ultimately they like love me and support me. And so they're like, "Who is this?" I'm like, "Don't do that. We're not doing that. We're going to do, who is this? Welcome. Come in," kind of a thing. Until she gives us a reason not to, especially early on. Like, we're not going to start with our jukes up for no reason.
Yeah.
Like, so, and I think that has like truly helped the whole
Absolutely.
dynamic.
Well, I think that the awareness of the external parties and the impact of that, whether it's, extended family or even
Mm,
like, I talked to a guest who had her mom's friends were just always talking badly about her dad.
mm,
And the impact of that, positively or negatively, if you have that support system that stays aligned, versus goes completely nuts. And then the child hears grandma and aunts and uncles, everybody talking
mm,
badly about the other one. It's just destabilizing in so many greater ways.
yeah.
And I mean, again, like I said, I think you've done an incredible job and being kind of the leader in it and saying, like, they're going to take the cue from you. So you
Mm,
saying, we're going to welcome her with open arms until she gives us a reason not to. So
mm-hmm.
get on board,
Yeah.
because ultimately, back to your mantra, this is for Rylan,
Right. It's
and
Rylan's birthday and
yeah,
stuff. And then, well, it came up too this year during basketball season. Michaela liked one of my, like, I had a handbag and she was like, "Oh, I like that bag." And I was like, "Oh, thanks." And she, "Is it new?" "No, I got it a couple years ago outside of Disney World. There's a really big outlet and I got it at the outlet." She's like, "Oh, maybe that's what I should do." My mom was like, "Michaela, you want to go to Disney World with me and Rashelle?" Like, instantly. And my ex-husband was like, "No, what's happening?" Because I think he was excited to get away from the Disney adults, but I think he's like, you dare turn her into a Disney adult. But yeah, it was just so natural. And like when Michaela's parents come to the games, we all sit together. Like Rylan has a section at games. And I just think like it's huge. It's so important. And was it weird at first? Yeah, like it's weird to like be sitting with your ex-husband's new wife's family, but if I ran into them in person, like out and about, like it's not weird because I kind of know them now. And also, Rylan goes to their house and has sleepovers at their house sometimes with the other grandkids and stuff. So I just think it's really important. And I'm sure some people are listening because your situation is so different and you're just like, I would never, I could never. And I just think you can. Like, it's hard and it's not, and like, we've already mentioned multiple times, there has been times where I like truly had to swallow my pride. I had butterflies in my stomach. I hated every second of it. But I sat next to people I didn't want to sit next to show Rylan that you can, first of all, and be cordial and pleasant. And there's no need for this toxicity of, it's not Rylan's fault or problem that Philip and I couldn't work it out. And I'm not going to make it her problem,
Yeah.
And so, do you have to go above and beyond and like, I don't know, have them over for dinner and stuff? No, not necessarily, but she's just so young. And sometimes after a game, she's like, can we all go get breakfast or dinner? And I want to be like, we're not going out with them. So we're just like, sure. And then it's funny because like I was with Philip for 16 years. So when we do go out to eat, I'll be like, are you going to order such and such? Because if you are, can I have a piece of whatever? Because we do still know each other like really well. And luckily our significant others are just kind of like, okay,
Yeah. That is so
whatever. Yeah.
I mean, like I said, you have set the bar very high for people. However, if someone could pick two or three things to do, like you've done, knowing that you're not saying do it because it's easy, you
Mhm.
know, it's the results could multiply on their children dramatically if they could just do a couple things and know that, they can just do it. It doesn't have to be because it's wonderful, peaceful, lovely, and all of those feelings. It's just because you just do it, and in the end, it matters so much to your
Yeah,
child.
it really does. There was a group of us moms talking the other day about clothes and like how this is a topic. And I don't know if you experienced this in your divorce, but clothes going back and forth to the different houses and people being like, no, I bought that for you. That stays here. And we were just talking about like, really, you bought it for the kid. If the kid wants to wear it to dad's, just let your kid wear it to dad's. The only time I ever bring it up to Rylan is if it's something specific for an activity. Like if she goes home in a ballet outfit, like a ballet leotard to her dad's, which happens sometimes. Don't forget to bring your leotard back because you need it on Tuesday. Not
Yeah,
because I bought it and I need it in my house, but you actually need it for Tuesday. Um, don't forget to bring your basketball shoes back because you have practice on Monday, like stuff like that. But I think it just puts so much pressure on, and it really does mentally show them the divide. Like, this is a mom shirt, this is a dad shirt. Like, I'm just like, I bought you clothes to wear. I don't really care where you wear them unless I bought it for something specific. Then I want it to show up to the specific thing. But ultimately, if you want to take, she's going on spring break to Puerto Rico with her dad, and she is like, I kind of want to take my swimsuits from here and like 4 dresses, have her suitcases from here. I don't care.
yeah,
If that's what makes her feel great in Puerto Rico and she likes what she's wearing and it works, then awesome. Knock yourself out. If we go swimming and all your swimsuits are at dad's, that's also kind of your responsibility. You're 10 now. You can remember that you took all your swimsuits over there. So try to remember to bring one back. But that's it. Like, it's not about, though, like, I bought that, my money, this. And luckily, he's pretty similar in that regard. Or I try to be mindful if, like, it was pajama day and she went to his house in pajamas and then she wears school clothes to school when he takes her to school. I try to send, like, an extra pair of, like, school clothes back with him or vice versa to even out the closets a little bit. But him and I will talk too. Like, is the snowsuit at your house? I have a snowsuit at my house. Or Michaela, like the three of us will be on a thing because boys aren't always, no offense, any
yeah,
men listening, but you're not the best with sizes and like what's in the closet. So sometimes her and I will just talk like, what do you need for your guys' ski trip? This is what I have at my house. And I'll send her a picture of whatever ski stuff's at my house. And
yeah,
then, because ultimately it's about if Rylan has a good time and if Rylan has what she needs to go on the ski trip,
right.
right? I'm not trying to like stick it to Philip, like, nope, go buy another snowsuit. I've got one at my house, or vice versa. Like, that's just so stupid and like
Yeah.
such a waste of time and
Well,
energy.
it goes back to you when you were talking about your younger sister and the using of her. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, that's what you're doing when you're like, I bought this, she can't have that at your house.
Right.
I mean, I think what you said about that just exemplifies a divide,
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is again, these are the two parents' issues playing out over the kids' clothes,
Right.
you
And
know?
they're probably fighting about money. And
Yes,
so then they make the clothes the money part. Like, well, I bought blah, blah, blah. So it
right.
can't go to your dad's because your dad owes me money or your mom owes me money or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. There's so many things, but again, it is another example of we are making this child suffer and struggle and be aware of
Mm,
something that's revolving around clothes, but then what comes out of that is so much more, and it's just, again, just, they don't have to be so gracious like you
mm,
are, but they could be half of that. They could be a
right.
little bit of it, just simply saying, does it really matter? At the end of the day, does it really matter?
Well, and just being mindful, like your ex is your ex. A lot of times in divorce situations, I see this as an agent and as, a friend or a person in the community. Normally, one parent has a better job than the other parent. So one parent can afford different clothes than the other parent. And especially depending on the kids' age and stuff, like if you're the house that was able to buy, I don't know, like I don't know what's cool right now, but like Doc Martens or whatever, the Nikes, the Jordans, and you don't let them take them to school, or like it's all this extra
Yeah,
stuff, right? So it's just like maybe the other parent couldn't afford that kind of stuff. Does it matter? They grow so fast anyways. Let them wear the damn shoes before they can't wear them anyway, right?
right,
That's how my thought is, like I did spend the money on this, so I want her to wear them. Like I don't want them to sit in the closet upstairs just because she's at her dad's. So I think just trying to change your own mindset around it, like, well, I'm spending all the money and she's wearing it at his house. Doesn't matter. You bought him for your kiddo. Like you bought your kiddo XYZ. Don't you just want your kiddo to have XYZ? And if you take your ex out of it, who cares? Pretend they're going to your mom's house or your sister's house or
right.
a friend's house. You wouldn't say that then. You wouldn't be like, you can't wear that to grandma's. I bought that. But
Yeah,
you say it when they go to their dad's house or their mom's house. Like, try and just change your mindset on it, and it'll help you too with your own peace of mind.
yeah,
Like, then you're not going to be fretting about it internally. And then the kids get to wear the stuff that they really want to wear versus, oh, at my dad's house, I only have this, or at my mom's house, I only have that. So it's embarrassing or not embarrassing or whatever.
yeah. No, definitely. So I have two last things, and they're both short. One, I just like to ask, when you reflect on all of this, what has become one of your most non-negotiable values that you think you have acquired over, you know, 40 years, or the first 20,
Yeah.
that's something that's really, you got to stick with it.
I think boundaries and setting boundaries with myself, setting boundaries with others, and not being, I had mentioned earlier jokingly about being a people pleaser. I have like changed that a little bit of as I've gotten older. I mean, ultimately at my core, it does make me happy to make others happy. Like I can't turn that off. But I have boundaries now. So sometimes my boundary is not going to make you happy, but I know it's the right choice. And so, for example, like some of the stuff I talked about earlier, like telling my family, you're going to be nice, telling my significant other, you can't ever say something like that in front of her again. If it has to do with, like, oh, why did he do XYZ? Even if it's like my significant other hasn't said anything like really nasty about her dad, but even like remotely like, well, can her dad pay for it? Like if I'm thinking like, oh, I got to figure out how I'm going to pay for gymnastics and this and that, and I'm having a conversation with him, and she might just be upstairs and it's not even about that. Like, oh, okay, well, I have this coming up and this, like the normal bills conversation that you're having. And sometimes he'll make a comment like, well, could her dad pay for that? And he's not even trying to be like nasty. I'll just be like, can you not? I don't want to have that conversation and have her over here. And then I started thinking about when it comes to money with Rylan. So, for example, ballet. She's in ballet right now. I found the class. I got her everything she needs for it. I'm taking her to ballet, but daddy did pay for ballet. So I wanted her to know, like, hey, mommy got you all signed up for ballet, but you should thank daddy because daddy did pay for ballet. So, like, letting her know is like a united, daddy and I are both providing ballet in
Yeah.
different ways. So, like, showing her that, but just setting those boundaries with your family, like you mentioned, mom's friends or anything like that. Like, everybody knows if they want true feelings about something, they will only come out when Ryland's not around, and they will be behind closed doors. And even still, I still try really hard not to ever say anything negative about Philip in general because it just helps my own mindset around everything to be different.
Yeah.
But boundaries is a huge one, and sticking to it, even when
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last question has nothing to do with any of this. It's just my way to wrap this up in a light way.
Sure.
Do you have a book recommendation of something you have read in the past year or two that you just think was fantastic?
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, so I read a lot of professional and personal development books for my job, which not everybody is going to find riveting. But then I also read a lot of romance novels, which also not everybody is going to find riveting.
They might do one of each.
I know. Well, shoot. Well, it kind of just depends on like how sassy or saucy you want your romance. But I would say most recently for professional or personal development, Lean In by Mel Robbins. I know it's a newer book. I'm sure some other people might have written or recommended
You
it,
mean
but
let them?
Let Them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let Them by Mel Robbins. It's about just letting go of certain things. I don't know if you've ever heard the quote, like, someone's opinion of me is their business, not mine. If they want to think you're crazy for sitting by your ex at a game, let them.
Let them.
Like, that doesn't impact me at all. And like, so just like knowing when to care and when not to care. The idea for the book for her came from her teenagers, and like it was driving her crazy. Like for prom, they didn't have a reservation, they didn't have a plan, and so then she felt like she had to jump in, and her daughter was like, mom, let them figure it out, like for the other sibling. And so that's where the like idea of let them came from for her, is like, it's not my prom, it's not my responsibility if they have a date or a reservation, or like they can figure it out. So for parents and stuff out there, that could be a good one. It's not just about parenting, it's about in
I
general,
thought it
like
was
let
fantastic.
them,
Yeah.
yeah, let them do it.
They
They're
can
a little
they
bit
can
different.
follow you on your own Instagram and you can
That's
put all
true.
your romance
It's
books.
really easy to find me. It's realtor Rashelle, and Rashelle is spelled like, think of the word rash, Rashelle. So it's always a joke. My friends call me Rash because it's how you like say my name shortened. It started in sports, like Rash outside, Rash down low, like pass it to Rash. It's easier to yell than Rashelle.
Yeah.
So yeah, realtor Rashelle. Message me. I'll send you all the romance novel books.
With varying levels of spice.
Yes, yes. Varying levels of spice and romance.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Literary
this
intelligence.
yeah. Well, this has been wonderful. I can't thank you enough
Yeah.
because I just think I hope that in 20 years that your daughter says the greatest blessing you ever gave her was the united front that you have shown, because I just think it's a beautiful thing. And it's incredibly difficult to do. And you've clearly demonstrated doing it with grace. And I admire you for that because I know how hard it is.
It is hard. And I have to give Philip credit too, because I'm only one side of it. And so he's doing it too, you know. So it's both of you having to make the decisions. But yeah, to your point, sometimes it does take one to step up
Yeah,
first. Like this
for sure.
dance could have went a totally different route.
Yeah,
Right.
as it often does.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you again for having me.
Of course. Thanks for tuning in. Together we can shape healthier paths for families to do divorce better. See you next time on In Between Them.